you know what I've realised actually? We don't have any Pokemon stuff on this shelving at all, do we?
I thought I just saw... no.
Hello, you join us on the 20th anniversary of Pokemon. I'm joined by Tom Phillips, resident Pokemon fan.
Hello.
I'm actually a fan of Pokemon, I just haven't played it since like Gold. How long ago was that?
That was a long time ago because that's the second generation of Pokemon.
Yeah, which is why I thought with the announcement yesterday of Sun and Moon.
Because we are actually in the office on a Saturday.
Yes, obviously it's not that we recorded it the day before. I haven't played Pokemon in a while, so I thought because they didn't actually announce that much stuff other than it's coming out, it might be a good time to do like a little primer.
Yeah.
Where is Pokemon today? What's it all about?
Where is Pokemon? Pokemon is all around us.
Okay, all right.
You know, it's on the TV screen.
Okay, how many?
It's on your Game Boy. Probably don't have a Game Boy anymore. It's on your 3DS.
How many Pokemon are there currently? It's like it's in the
781.
Jeez, that sounds like an awful lot.
It is an awful lot. Yeah, although I think it's more that some of the more recent designs haven't been as interesting or original as the classics.
You're talking about the ice cream cone, aren't you?
Yeah, we had a discussion about this at lunch. The ice cream cone is widely the most hated.
Yeah.
There's also some little cogs.
Yeah.
And there's Rotom, who is this Pokemon who can change into various home appliances.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Did
the world need a toaster Pokemon? Probably not.
I don't understand that. Yeah, but there is also there's a sun-shaped Pokemon and a moon-shaped Pokemon already in the fiction, like in the last game, right? So how do you think these games are going to tie into that? I imagine that's a similar theme, right?
I mean, the Pokemon lore, not to get too deep into it because it doesn't make a lot of sense, it will probably be some kind of myth about these Pokemon.
Are they from the Sun and the Moon?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, right. I mean, as I said, the lore is quite convoluted. And a lot of it is myths because, you know, it took place thousands of years ago. But there were Pokemon that made the earth and the seas. And of course, there's the god Pokemon, Arceus.
Yep.
Or possibly Arceus. I never actually looked it up and
it's
decided. Yeah. That was the god of all the Pokemon.
So, you know, we started off with...
So maybe this is somehow related.
We started off with 151, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do they keep finding more Pokemon in such large quantities? It's not like, we've discovered like a couple.
So there is the certain different areas of the world. And the first few games were set around regions which were Japan. Mm-hmm. So you had Johto, Kanto, Hoenn, Sinnoh. They were all areas in Japan, and then there was Black and White, which was set in a version of New York, and then the most recent ones, X and Y, are Paris. So, you know, you see the Pokemon which are local to that region. Do
we know anything about Sun and Moon where that might be going?
No, they showed a remarkably small amount of footage in the Pokemon Direct.
There's a little bit of concept art I saw.
Yeah, a bit of concept art, but beyond that, it was really, really short. And I guess that's partly because they're not out for a while, but also it felt a little bit like, we'd quite like you to buy the old games which are releasing on Virtual Console, because then you can transfer your creatures over via the Cloud app.
Yeah, so you can get the Pokemon from like Red and Blue into the new games. Yeah. I mean, like most of that Direct was kind of nostalgia. It was like, it's been 20 years, we're going to make some more.
That is a big part of Pokemon now. Yeah. If you look at the last Pokemon games, X and Y, they really traded on that very heavily because there were lots of the old Pokemon in that game for you to recapture, and you could get Charizard and things like that again. And they've gone back to those by introducing Mega Evolutions, which is this new mechanic where basically it's a way for them to give a slightly new design and improve stats to old Pokemon and refresh them. And also include the word Mega, which is always a plus. True. So they are kind of harking back to those because they are the ones that people remember, and as the number of Pokemon rises, you know, you can't... I remember being able to probably remember all of the names of the 150. Yeah, I reckon I would have had a good go at one point. But now... Goodness no. Is there still an incentive to catch them all? Like, is that still a thing that people do? When there's approaching 800 Pokemon, obviously, like you said, you can like transfer your Pokemon to the Pokemon Bank in the cloud and then get them into your new games. It's all very complicated. Don't worry about it. That's kind of an answer to that. But it's a weird thing. Like the Pokemon franchise has kind of got to the place where it's outgrown its own tagline.
Yeah, it has a little bit.
Got to catch them all, but you can't really because there's 800 odd.
Yeah. And not all of them transfer with each other unless you buy them on the eShop. And then
some of them are legendary and they're only given out at certain events. Although this year, because it's the 20th anniversary, they're giving a bunch of those ones, the rare ones, away.
All right.
And by putting everything on the cloud, then maybe that's Nintendo kind of being a little bit modern about things and just using that as a solution.
Gameplay-wise, where are we at? Like what with X and Y being the last two games?
Yeah.
What are we expecting from Sun and Moon?
Very little has changed, and I think the battling is kind of the core part of the gameplay, and that really hasn't altered too much. They've added a few things over the years, such as being able to fight 2 or 3 Pokemon simultaneously, and then being able to fight aerial battles.
Sure, but it's the same cool concept.
Same thing. You fight, you attack, you use an item, you run away.
It does. Like, it struck me whilst I was watching that direct how much has changed visually. I mean, it's been 20 years, and admittedly, it's still kind of
well, there's still kind of
basic 3D
top-down, but it is 3D now, completely 3D as of X and Y. And looking back at Red and Blue,
like I just remember thinking during that direct, like they showed the original like Charmander and Squirtle. That's not how I remember those.
No,
looking,
but that's not how you remember any of those games. Like from your childhood playing on Game Boy, I revisited Zelda Link's Awakening recently, and man, it's pretty primitive, although there's a real charm to how it looks.
Yeah. And
I think that's the same with Pokemon, and the designs of the Pokemon, definitely. Those creatures from back in the day, all of those creatures are pretty iconic from the first sort of generation, the starters, which is why they keep going back to them.
Sure.
So hopefully this time around they come up with some interesting new designs and no more ice cream.
Yeah, that would be good. But having not really played any of the series that much since like Gold and Silver, I'm cool to jump into the Sun and Moon probably, and it'll be all right.
Nintendo don't really do like long storied franchises where you have to play every installment. So think of it like Zelda. Everyone kind of tells the same story, and every Pokemon game is about a trainer setting off from his hometown. Collecting
beating
Pokemon,
up kids and then going to like a gym and then getting a badge.
You don't beat up the kids, you beat up the creatures.
Emotionally you beat them up, but okay,
probably, yeah. Although it's another, that's the whole question. I mean, how much do these Pokemon really get hurt? And then you just take them to the Pokemon Center and Nurse Joy just makes them better again?
This is my favorite dark rumor about the Pokemon franchise is that when you go to the Poké Center and you hand over your Pokeballs, what's actually happening is that they get rid of your Pokeballs and just replace them with other Pokemon.
That's not true.
They kill them every time.
That's not true.
Nurse Joy isn't a friendly, helpful
neighborhood
nurse.
That's not true.
But, well, I mean...
Because you trained up those monsters to a certain level, and then when you get them back, they're the same level, with the same stats. They know the moves that you've taught them.
We're talking about magical monsters that live inside balls that fit in your pocket.
No, I refuse to believe this. There are some really dark things about Pokemon, and especially in the early days when they hadn't really quite worked out how the series was going to work. There were references in the Pokédex to Pokemon being eaten by humans and other Pokemon.
That's unthinkable.
The reason that
You've taken this too far.
Farfetch'd was this little duck Pokemon?
Yeah, with the leak in its mouth, right?
Yeah, and the reason it carried the leak was because it was kind of a weapon. And
it's a melee weapon, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was used to fight off humans who were eating it. And the reason why it's quite rare now in Pokemon is because it was so delicious.
that doesn't fit into what I now think of as Pokemon. And
when you see the anime and they drink like the equivalent to cows' milk, which is there is a cow Pokemon.
Okay.
And
do they eat beef burgers?
Yeah, there are like human foods in it, and they never really explain where these foods come from. So
don't worry about it too much.
Yeah, there's graveyards as well. I mean, do Pokemon die? They must die. Jeez. No, they don't live forever.
Maybe these are the deep, dark questions that are going to be answered in Pokémon Sun and Moon.
Pokemon, yeah. When the series finally comes of age and starts addressing life, death.
It's time for the great reboot. When are we going to hear more about this? Do you think E3?
I think that's probably a good bet, yeah.
All right, cool. Well, we'll see you then. Cheers. Bye.